Ooh.
Well, it's my birthday tomorrow, so
Yeah.
I mean,
there's
ever a time.
we're going to kick it off right.
flip it up.
Hey.
There it is.
Happy birthday.
Thanks, buddy. It's been a good day. It's going to be a decent day tomorrow. I don't know if you've ever... Let me ask you this, Pilo. Are you a fake Christmas tree guy or a real Christmas tree guy?
As a kid who spent most of my childhood in a bubble because I had such bad allergies and was sick all the time, fake tree. Love the smell of a real one, but out of necessity, fake tree.
I tell you, who can't tell the difference between fake and real? My dog, Buddy.
Yeah.
Eating up
Buddy the dog?
ornaments, fake berries, which are like, it's basically a wire.
Yeah.
We're just inches away from like a $3,000 surgery. I can feel it. Anyway, dude, gonna be a great show tonight. We've got a couple guests backstage, and maybe a couple more that are that might pop in. I'm not positive yet, but at least we got these two guys.
Yeah,
and they're gonna provide some very interesting perspectives. So let's go ahead and get to the show. Welcome to the Top Talk. Greetings and salutations, everyone, and welcome to another episode of To the Top Talk, brought to you by Yingling Flight. To the Top Talk is the original and longest-running Southern Miss podcast in the market. We're recording this episode on, Pilo?
December the 10th.
That's right, from beautiful Hattiesburg, Mississippi. Here, as always, with your break from the high resource for propaganda to talk a little Southern Miss athletics. I'm your host, Jason Bailey, and that guy right there is the one and only Patrick Lowry.
Hey, back in the studio.
Yeah, I like the I don't know if you're going to release the video on this one, but I love the backdrop here that you conjured
it's a little,
up.
Little AI, our platform here added that in. I put in a little prompt and boom, we have a background.
Fantastic.
Trying to put me out of a job.
I know, right? Today's episode is, if that happens, you're going to need some beer, right? So today's episode is brought to you by Yingling Flight. Yingling Flight is a premium light beer brewed by DG Yingling & Son Incorporated. The oldest brewery in America. 95 calories, only 2.6 grams of carbs, 4.2% ABV per 12-ounce serving. Crisp, clean, refreshing taste. Now available in 12-ounce slim cans and screw-top 16-ounce pints. Pick yourself up some Yingling Flight today. What happened since the last time we recorded? Quite a bit. We didn't do one last week.
Just a little bit. Just a little.
It's kind of good that we didn't because, good Lord.
Yeah, it would have been pointless.
But basically, we had a shot at a championship game. We came up a little short football-wise. We did find out we're going bowling in New Orleans, which I'm happy about.
Yep.
Basketball's back in action. I competed in that turkey toss tournament. Actually, I made it to the finals. So
that's wild.
Yeah, it was cool. We hired a new ladies soccer coach. Lots of coaches getting hired and fired around the country, and ours just left, right?
Yeah.
And you cooked up a big bowl of jambalaya, I think.
Yeah.
And
gave Coach Ladner a bowl.
Yep.
Yeah.
That is very good. But the main reason that we came on was to talk about all this stuff with two experts and two guys that follow it very closely and are very have a lot to do with Southern Miss athletics. So number one, I tell you what, we'll start off with the older of the two. Mr. Karr Shannon joins us tonight. So Karr, of course, played on those mid and late 90s teams. He had his own corner, the Karr's Corner, where all the baseball players and stuff held up this big sign for him. And now he does Oak Grove Athletics, right? Calling the football games over there. So welcome, Karr Shannon.
Appreciate it, Bump and Pilo. It's as you and I talk, Bump. It's been, I don't know if it's been 7-8 years since I've been on, but it's been a minute. Those are a long time ago, but and also the fact that you said experts, I think that's being quite kind. But
appreciate, like I was saying in the open, this was zero rehearsal. This is
but I appreciate
high level journalism.
Mm-hmm. I appreciate the optimism, but grateful to be back and talk a little Southern Miss football, and kind of recap this season and what I think we all hope to see moving forward.
Absolutely. And also, welcome to the show. This is a current student at Southern Miss. He goes to all the stuff. I knew this guy's dad way back in college, and Charlie's following right in his footsteps. I think he might go to more games than your dad did, actually. But he's following right in his footsteps and see him everywhere. And he's a current student, so we're kind of going to be able to get that perspective as well. So welcome to the stage, Charlie Lanehart.
Yeah, I really appreciate you, Jason, Pilo, Karr, ready to talk to y'all about all the stuff that's really been going on with Southern Miss. So let's get to it.
Cool. Well, guys, we're going to start off just right with the the whole inverted pyramid thing. We're going to start off with Huff because you can't bury the lead. So Huff's tenure at Southern Miss. I mean, and now that it's come to an end, I don't know if you guys thought it was going to be over with in like 10 and a half, 11 months, but I thought we might get a little bit more out of that. But we'll start off with you, Karr. Just your thoughts on Coach Huff and how would you kind of evaluate his tenure, if you can call it a tenure, less than a year, but how would you talk about that?
You've heard a lot over the last week since everything has transpired. And, you turn on Twitter and you see different things and opinions and things like that. I think people need to kind of take a deep breath. Our fan base needs to really take a deep breath and think about where we were over these last several years and taking a team, a very proud program, but that had struggled mightily over the last several years and was coming off a 1-11 season and one bowl appearance in the last however many years, and Huff retools the roster immediately and brings instant credibility of championship football back to the program and comes in and ultimately puts Southern Miss back in a bowl game, had the opportunity to win a championship. Now, obviously, everybody's kind of got a sour taste down the stretch because to that point, Golden Eagles had every opportunity to play in the conference championship against James Madison and ultimately failed down the stretch, losing those last 3 games, and in which favored in all 3. But I still think everybody needs to take a deep breath and think about 7-5 looks far better than 1-11. And
yeah, it's interesting. Let me jump in real quick. It's interesting that you're looking at it from kind of an overall program standpoint, I think, because look, this whole, and I've said it, but this whole, they're like, dude, he took a 1-11 team and made them a 7-5. I'm like, not really. Okay. It's an entirely different, from a program standpoint. Okay. Now I look at it as if, say you had an old car, right? And that car is just terrible. It wasn't making it anywhere. You're having to take it to the shop all the time. Well, let's say you got like a pretty good mechanic and he came in and he's like, I got it. And he worked on that car for a little bit and it turned into a pretty damn good car. That's not what happened here. We got a whole new vehicle, right? but from a program overall standpoint, I get where you're coming from.
Yeah, I mean, look, everybody can have their opinion and perspective on things, but I think you just kind of got to – and I think there is a lot of frustration because he is going in a year. But he got significantly more money and to go and move beyond. And I think if you have to take a step back and take the emotion out of this and look at it, if you in your professional life were given an opportunity like this, you kind of got to – I think you need to kind of put that lens on things. And again, the piece of he left it better than he found it. And so I look at it from that perspective. And now it's up to Jeremy, to Joe Paul, and the rest of the folks that are involved in the process to make the right choice to build on what Huff started here and can take, and build on that. Some of that is retention of the rosters, and obviously the rest is looking in the portal, signing some high school guys that can fill in or perhaps junior college, but really taking what this season was and getting back to consistent traditional winning and ultimately a conference championship here at Southern Miss.
Amen. Charlie, what about, from a student's perspective? So you just got to campus, but, I'm sure that, well, I say you have. So have you always, I know you grew up in Baton Rouge, but have you always been a Southern Miss guy?
Always been a Southern Miss guy, born and
Okay.
raised.
So you've seen it all unfold. In fact, like since you've been alive, we haven't been very good. I don't think so.
It's never really been great. I'll tell you that much.
Okay. So now you're on campus. I guess you're starting to kind of see what maybe your dad's been talking about all these years, where he developed his love for the university. So just from a student's perspective, how do you feel about like the Huff season?
So I woke up Saturday morning to the news. I was really surprised, honestly, especially after hearing his press conference about the signing day. It sounded like he was really committed to the team, really fired up about the signing class he was bringing in. But overall, I can't really be mad about it. I feel like at the time, it was the biggest hire in Southern Miss history that Jeremy McClain and Joe Paul were making. They were trying to rebuild a program that finished 1-11, and they were rebuilding an entire roster. And for him to win 7 games, to be in the contention, like Karr said, of the Sun Belt Championship is a really big deal. But I do believe that the next hire is the biggest hire in Southern Miss football history. I think that's the hire that needs to sustain the winning that Coach Huff brought back to campus from the early 2000s, from when Blake Anderson was offensive coordinator and Larry Fedora was head coach. But overall, I don't think you can be mad about what Coach Huff did. He came in basically an impossible situation to where he rebuilt a roster, brought in around 80 new players, and turned it around to where there were people talking about us around the country. Obviously, Memphis is a big program. It's a stepping stool to bigger power forward programs in the country. So I feel like from a financial standpoint, it made a lot of sense for Huff. But you can't be mad overall about what he did.
I know it's got to hurt Carr to his core to hear that Memphis is
Yeah,
a step up.
To hear Charlie say that, I'm like, bless. But I mean,
Charlie, where Carr is coming from is we owned Memphis.
Yeah.
I don't know what the overall record is. P. Logan can probably look that up, but like, it's got to be like 45-11 or something.
Man, I don't. That makes it hurt way more.
Yeah, but there's recency bias there, and so Charlie sees that, and he understands. And you can read about it, and the resources that are allotted to that head football coach are honestly significantly more, and that's the world we live in these days. And that, not to get us derailed in terms of what and how the landscape of college athletics as a whole has just changed everything, and kind of where Southern Miss fits in that space. But to Charlie's point, the resources are significantly more there from an NIL space, and they're one of the most funded programs in the American. So I understand that, but Charlie's got a really good point in that this may be the most critical hire, as Jeremy, as Joe Paul looks to build on the success of this year and try to sustain it. And so Charlie has a really good point there. And it is a very critical hire, not only from who's the leader, but how well that they put a staff in place and how they recruit our current roster and recruit for the 26 roster.
So we started playing Memphis in 1935. We have played 63 games, and we have won 40 of them.
So I said 45-11. What is
40, 22, and 1.
Okay. Well, they won more than I thought.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's still pretty lopsided, right? They have to beat us for a quarter century straight.
But when I was in athletics and working with Bill McGillis, I was compiling all this data for teams like Tulane, Memphis, Houston, East Carolina. Our record against every one of those is like that. There's not a program out there besides South Alabama that we're lopsided. We're so lopsided against. We own the historical, win-loss against all those teams, which is why I like our fan base and fans that have been around our program for a long time are frustrated to see that, Tulane and Memphis are getting, looped into this category that we're not in.
Let's remind or just I guess maybe remind ourselves real quick. Let's look back at all these games and see how the season kind of played out. So we started off with Mississippi State. I think all of us saw that game. We're like, you know what? I don't know. We look okay. We look like a Division I football team out there. Got beat 34-17. Then reeled off two 38 point scoring games in a row and won both of those. And then we had that loss to La Tech, which I don't know about you, Karr, but I thought that was probably the game that we stubbed our toe. It's happened since the beginning of time with Southern Miss. There's a game where we just, for whatever reason, didn't play up to our standards. We thought that was it because immediately following that La Tech game, we reeled off 5 wins in a row. We're starting to kind of get some talk about a legitimate shot at possibly getting in the playoff, right? All the percentages when you saw them, it was like 5% chance, 1% chance, but we were on there, right? And where the program's been, I was like, no, there we are. We're on there. I see our name. And then, Karr already alluded to it, but got our ass kicked by Texas State. I wanted to just rip my arm right off myself when I was rocking out of the rock. Then it says 42-35 versus South Alabama, but I feel like we got our ass kicked that game. And then the loss to Troy, 28-18. So take yourself, Charlie, start with you. Like, take yourself through the emotional roller coaster that was the season. I mean, did it kind of play out exactly how I feel like it did for you?
So, first of all, I want to say this. I was at the Tech game and I was at the South Alabama game. So watching it in person, you're just like, what kind of team are we even like? Where are we moving forward in the right direction? Where are we even going from this? But no, I remember talking to my dad early in the season just about the expectations of this team. And while we were getting a lot of players from Marshall with Coach Huff, and we were getting a lot of players out of the portal, it was still a brand new team, and the expectations going to the season shouldn't have necessarily been as high as some fans may have anticipated them to be. So I think by going from 1 win all the way to 7 wins with still 1 game to go in a postseason, I think is a huge improvement. I just think, like Karr said earlier, the way they ended this season just has a bitter taste in everyone's mouth. And it's just something that is hard for some fans to understand, especially like you said, in the fact that technically there was a shot at the playoff, especially looking at it now to where if you win those last 3 games, you're playing for a conference championship. More than likely the winner of that game is going to the college football playoff. So I think overall it was a really good season. But as the season was going on, it was a little inconsistent.
Karr, jump in here. So I think what Charlie's saying is, man, 7-5 is better than 1 win. Everybody agrees with that. But just staring at the playoffs, right? So maybe if you'd have looked at it, if we didn't have 5 wins in a row and 3 losses in a row to end the season, if you just kind of mix those up a little bit and still end up with 7-5, I mean, are we feeling better?
Well, let's go back real quick. You talk about working. First game of the year against State, you saw significant improvement, in my opinion, up front on both sides of the football. Now, not where it needs to be, because I think the offensive line was horrendous during Coach Hall's era, was horrendous, both physically and from a developmental standpoint. And we could get into that too, but I mean, we needed to be better up front, and you could see there was significant improvement when we played State. And then you go to that App State game, and really, this to me is what set the precedent for the success for the rest of the season, was how successful Southern Miss was in winning the turnover margin and creating turnovers and winning the turnover margin. And that also, to me, was part of the reason we struggled down the stretch in those 3 games, because you didn't see that too much. And, the La Tech game, I know, as Charlie said, it just, you question, is this, who is this team, that sort of thing. But that's going to happen. Those games are going to happen. It wasn't ideal. I know, I on the text thread, Marchand's just wearing me out. I'm like, just relax. And we come back the next week, and then what do we do? We play really well against a really good Jacksonville State team. Okay, that was a team that played for the Conference USA Championship and lost, but that was a really good. That's another team that's going bowl. That was a really good Jacksonville State team That we dominated at home that day. And then you reel off several wins, as you said. You beat Georgia Southern on the road. You beat Lafayette on the road. To me, that game to me was real pivotal, is going to Lafayette and winning that game. You beat ULM and then obviously go to Arkansas State, win that game, with some adversity when Braxton went down, and you win that game. But those, as we said, those last three games with everything to play for, it really just kind of left a bitter taste in our mouth. And I think too, it also exposed some things because, without really dominating, in terms like creating the turnovers and things like that, which led to extra possessions. You saw some struggles there. Only putting up 14 points against Texas State at home, in which we got beat really up front. And then
just pick away, we got beat that game.
Yeah, I mean that game it was rough to watch, man. But it's 7 wins, and so I think it's a little bit of, let's take a deep breath and look at the body of work as a whole beyond just those last 3 games. So I think that's the biggest thing that I take away from it. It's back with a 7-5 record, a chance to finish the season with 8 wins, in New Orleans on the 23rd. And so it's a really positive thing after going 1-11 and the struggles that we've had the last several years. So I think that's the perspective that we all need to have on this as we look back on this season.
Sure. No doubt.
No.
And Karr, I mean, I guess I'd like to lean on you for this a little bit, just that you played, and you probably watch football games through a different lens than I do. But what position groups? You mentioned the O-line there. What position groups kind of showed you something this season, and which ones struggled the most in your eyes?
Well, I still think. Well, I think what stood out the most, and I want to touch on a comment Charlie made here in a second. But I think what has stood out and really was the difference for this team was the defense. And I think that's really, everybody got excited when Huff came because he brought Braxton from Marshall, and they had such success offensively. And then the splash of bringing Blake back here to be the OC. So everybody had that mindset of we were going to really be electric offensively, which it was also in having Braxton would provide stability at quarterback, which we've known that's been a large part of the struggles the last several years. Is I think what was it, a couple years ago we had 10, 11, 12 guys take a snap. I think we set a college football record for that.
Yeah.
And
had a defensive back in there, and
I mean, I think your son even took 1 snap. Too soon. So to have a solid, established starter up front, and to have someone that was obviously had been very successful calling plays at Southern Miss and had a track record, to have breaks. So everybody thought it was going to be that really offensive splash. But to me, what has stood out this year, the difference to get those 7 wins was the defense, was Jason Seymour's defense, and the creating turnovers, how well they played on the back end, the opportunistic secondary, creating a lot of turnovers, interceptions. I don't know forgive me, but I don't remember what number we finished with. I don't know what that number was. Do you guys know off the top of your head?
I'm on it.
Charlie?
Give me a second.
Yeah, I know.
Where we ranked, or how many turnovers we finished with?
Both, actually. I know. I don't think it hit a school record because my redshirt freshman year in '94, we set the school record for interceptions that year. I think when Surtain got that interception at LSU that year, '94. I think we ended up with 24 that year or something like that.
I think we had 20 at one point this season.
Yeah, and then that's what I'm saying. Those last 3 games,
I know we were at 20, at least 21 after the Jacksonville State, the Arkansas State game.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know where we finished.
Yeah, but I think that's what stood out to me is the defense and how well that group played this year as a whole. Now, I do think still that the opportunity to be better up front offensively is still a place for, where I think as you look at the games we struggled, it wasn't. Braxton was all over. He was running for his life at times, and we didn't run the football very well. As I see Charlie nodding his head there, and I don't know, Pilo, if you have any perspective on that or Bump, but I do think that's one place that offensively I think we needed to be better down the stretches specifically.
Yeah, I think there were moments of flashes where it seemed like maybe we would get into that rhythm, but then there were also stretches where it looked like we were completely incompetent on that side of the ball.
Yeah, I mean, leading rushers, not even 500 yards. So, I mean, it's in 6 touchdowns rushing, with Pittman, with what he did. I mean, that's nothing to really, that's no superlative number there.
Yeah, we ended the season with 21 interceptions.
Yeah. Well, and that's, towards the end of the year when Braxton was putting up humongous numbers. Everybody's like, God, he threw for like 400. How did we win? I was like, we didn't win because he had to throw for 400.
Yeah.
Right? Like earlier in the year, it was a ho-hum 18 of 23 for 221 with, 2 touchdowns and 0 picks.
Yeah.
That's like a Lee Roberts game back in the day, right? And then all of a sudden when he had to throw it 52 times or something, well, it's just, you become one dimensional, and even though you got a good one,
Listen,
it's just tough.
The game has evolved over the years, right? It's spread out, it's played in space, and it's changed so much. But at the end of the day, there's a couple of things that still hold true, right? You win at the line of scrimmage, at the point of attack, you win the game. And defense and a run game will always help you be successful. Will be a difference. And, going back to the point, this is the point I wanted to make. Charlie said something earlier about, the tradition of like going back to Fedora. Well, when Coach Fedora was here, we were 7-6, 7-6, 8-5 type deal. It was just a game over 500 the first couple of years. And we lost a lot of games as Bump, as you remember, a lot of games like 56-49, things like that. So it was until that last year he was here that he really got over the hump. And the difference in that season was how good we were defensively.
The difference in that season is that, Todd Bradford was gonzo.
Yep. Because
we're like, bro, I know he's your boy.
It was bad.
Hey, Charlie, and you can probably remember my brain, I forget things so quickly, but who are some players that you hope stick around? Like, I mean, we saw what Huff did when he left Marshall. We brought the 22 players or whatever it was. Blake did, something similar when he came over from Utah State. It's just natural, I think, that you're going to take some guys with you because you like playing for the guy, especially in this day and age. Nobody plays for anybody forever. Like, all-time records at universities are safe from now on. Nothing's going to be broken anymore because everybody changes so much. But who are some of the players that you kind of hope stick around, and who do you think is already out the door?
So overall, like you said, the NIL, it's just gotten so out of control to where you have no idea when a player's going to enter the portal. You have no idea who's going to enter the portal. Obviously, one name that sticks out to me is Chris Jones. I feel like he was the forefront of our defense last year. I think top 10 in tackles in the entire country. Somebody that even last year when we went 1-11 was one of the top players in the Sun Belt. That's a guy that if we can retain will be the forefront and will be built for our defense next year. Another guy on defense, Ian Foster, was just all over the field last year. Came from Marshall, had a fantastic year as our safety. And then one guy who never really broke out because of how much depth we had at the position, but whenever he played, showed a lot, Tyshawn Chapman. He was really a breakout player, especially at Marshall, but more so whenever they needed him at Southern Miss, had a really productive season whenever he was on the field. So those guys, I know there's a couple more, but I was listening to an interview with Coach Huff, and he was talking about how whenever they were getting off the bus for the final Eagle Walk, he said all the seniors in the front. And he was like, I didn't notice that it was 30 to 40 guys going to the front of the bus to go do it because there was that many guys graduating. But overall, just keeping as much depth as possible with those 3 guys at the forefront will set the success for next season.
Hey, Karr, does that bother you? A guy that came and you were here for the duration. Remind me, did you walk on and then earn a scholarship? Like, remind me of your.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, I mean, especially in your case, these guys that they just show up, they got a bag of money. They get to walk out there on senior day and get the roses and that whole deal. I mean, is that okay with you? Or is there a part of you that's like, I don't know, man, that guy didn't go through boot camp, right?
It's kind of tough because it's not changing, right? And so that loyalty, and I think what gets lost in all this, and again, I don't want to derail it, but I think what gets lost and with the portal and the NIL and all that, and you hear coaches talk about this, and it's not just in football. It's in basketball, it's in other sports too. Is what you learn from staying around, right? From playing your entire career at one place. Of going through the adversity of getting coached hard and learning from your failures and how that helps develop you, not only on the field, but how it helps shape you as a person for later in life. And so I think that's the piece that kind of gets lost in all this because, and it's not just isolated here. This is the world we live in. Guys just, if they don't like what they hear from their coach or, thinks, treating them wrong, they just up and leave, right? And it may be the best thing for them to stay and persevere and learn from that. So, that's the world we live in. So, yeah, it doesn't bother me a little bit. It does, but I think, but there's also the positive things like guys, are getting, something for their efforts now beyond, the standard scholarship, and that's awesome because they've earned it. So that's a unique piece too, or a unique thing that it's just not having that opportunity. I can't speak to that necessarily, but I think it's some of these guys, and maybe not necessarily here, but they're getting life-changing money or to help them really on a good start for the rest of their life as a result of it. So there's certainly big benefits to it, but I think there's such value in what all of us went through from the education and then all the different things you learn through the perseverance of staying here, of time with Coach Bauer, Coach Thompson, all those guys, Coach Womack, all those guys that really helped shape us to put us on a path for success later in life too.
One thing I think that's going to be interesting this year is they had the 2 portal windows this year. They have removed the second portal window. Now we have starting January 2nd, portal opens for 2 weeks, and that's it. Like you can't, before you could have somebody somewhere in the spring and not be happy with spring ball. And decide to leave and then get them eligible over the summer, and boom, they're playing in the fall. That doesn't happen anymore. So guys are going to have a decision to make. And I think it's going to play out a lot different this year than it has in the past couple of years. That from 2 to 1 window is going to be a lot bigger than what I think people realize. And I don't think the grass is always going to be greener. Because some of these guys, may not have the film to go somewhere and get picked up. So I think it's going to be very interesting to keep in mind this year as the portal opens January 2nd.
Yeah, and knowing a lot of athletes back in the day, I tell you what, Karr, if you would have gotten a bag of money back in the day and I saw you out, beers were on you. So I'd have been for it, right?
Yeah.
So I'm not really against all that, but it's just I still don't know if I can put my finger on exactly how it makes me feel. Because if I was one of them, I wouldn't just I wouldn't not take it, right? I don't think that'd be the only reason that I would choose a university. But let me ask you this real quick, and I hadn't heard this really floated many places, but coaches, when they leave, there's a buyout. Well, if players are getting paid, is there ever a situation where there would be a buyout there? Let's just say that us 4 right here, we pulled together our money, we came up with like $100,000, and we went out and got the whatever player, and then that next year he's out. I think I'm like, hey man, do we get any of that money back? Like, I mean, is there? Do you ever see a situation where there could be buyouts on the other side for players?
I think there needs to be something in place. There's got to it's just gotten out of hand. I don't know if you guys saw this, but just recently Troy Aikman talked about that. He gave to the NIL at UCLA.
Yeah,
probably shaking his head. He's like, not doing it anymore because I gave a substantial amount of money to a young man and he left after a year. And he's like, I didn't even get a thank you. And the kid left after a year. And he's like, I'm done. So, you know.
Yeah, I think there's going to be donor fatigue. I think there already is. I mean, you have all these universities that are asking the faithful, regardless of the result, because, you know, it's a new staff, it's new players. Like, it's, hey, we need this, we got to do this, we got to do this. And it's just like, you're just, at some point, it has to come to an end.
And I think it's gotten so out of control to where it's almost become a professional organization in the sense of you have to almost put contracts on these guys and you have to put your money into a guy and make sure that it's guaranteed. And like Jason was saying, how if a player does leave, there needs to be a part of the contract where he needs to give some of that money back for the years that he was not there for. So I think it's a really interesting concept of how it all works.
Yeah, and also look at this with this revenue sharing. Once you become an employee, you can be fired, bro. Right?
Just ask Michigan. Too soon.
Way too soon.
Anyway, but look, I will say this about Southern Miss. Like number one at Southern Miss. I'm sorry, Karr. Go ahead.
To Pilo's point, I saw something on Twitter just before we got on here that who's the head coach that just got fired?
Sharon Moore.
Thank you. He entered the wrong portal.
Oh my goodness! But I will say, as far as Southern Miss goes, because it sounds like we're kind of bashing it all, and we're not. We're trying to make sense of it, and I don't think anybody would say like we don't need any rules at all. You know, I think everybody feels like there's going to be stipulations, but one thing that Southern Miss has always done is we've always been able to live within our means, right? And we have a guy like Peter that's running the collective that started it before anybody else in the Sun Belt. So we're well positioned moving forward with whoever our coach ends up being, right? But our coach right now, our head coach, interim head coach is Blake Anderson. He should have been the guy 14 years ago. We hired that other numbnuts. And how different would the last 14 years look if we just hadn't have made that hire? It would. I think it would be dramatically different. Charlie would feel way different about the school that he's attending now, and I would have probably more hair. I think, but
less gray.
But so yeah, less gray. But the upcoming bowl game that we have, our coach is Blake Anderson. I think we're all happy to be going back to a bowl. I love going to New Orleans anyway. Southern Miss fans always show out we used to play Tulane there every year, right, at the Dome. And if there was 20,000 people at the game, there was 16,000 Southern Miss fans and 4,000 Tulane. So I look for a big crowd. What do you guys think about the bowl game? Are you happy with New Orleans? I know we're kind of disappointed that we didn't at least give that playoff thing a sniff. But this is a pretty good consolation, I think. Yeah?
Yeah, I'll start. Overall, I think it's a really good opportunity, especially since you get 2 extra weeks of practice with the guys who are going to stay for next year. It's also against a very good team, 8-4 Western Kentucky, the night before Christmas Eve. But the main thing I'm taking away from this is it's almost like a tryout for Blake Anderson. He's the interim head coach, and he's one of the leading candidates for the job. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see how he game plans without Huff. By reading stuff on Twitter and by listening to interviews, you can tell that all the players and coaches, they're all really locked into this game, especially Braylon and Monton. So I don't know if necessarily you're going to see a different team out there, but I think you're going to see a fire under this team that you might not have seen all year because they're ready to finish this on the right foot.
Karr, what about you? You already got your tickets?
So, first of all, I haven't yet. Second of all, I think it's a great opportunity. It's the best opportunity for I think for us where we are. I mean, for both the practical reasons, right? We're right down the road. It's a great date. It's before Christmas, and I think that's great for the fans in terms of it is before Christmas, so it allows you to get down there, doesn't interfere with Christmas break and things like that. From a practical standpoint, for the players and the staff, it's phenomenal too. So they get the additional week of practice, like Charlie talked about. Some additional practice time to evaluate some kids and to look at that piece. It provides really, let's say Blake does get the job full time, which kind of anticipating that being the case. That's my guess. I think it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity for him to showcase what he can do with the program on a one night basis. But I do think it's a huge opportunity for him. And with, like Charlie talked about, with Braxton and those guys being fired up for it, I'm curious to know, and I'm excited to see them maybe get a little more aggressive from a play calling standpoint and see what what he dials up. Because I think that's so it's an opportunity for him to showcase from that perspective. And then it puts us in a better case, I think, from a recruiting standpoint in the portal and all that post Christmas, post New Year's. So I think it's a really good spot for us, both from a fan standpoint and from the program standpoint, with what the New Orleans Bowl brings. So I'm really excited with it.
Yeah, and I think that people have asked me, why haven't we? If you think Blake's the guy, like, why haven't they announced it? I'm like, I don't see any advantage in announcing that right now, right? It's basically, it's part of his job interview. He's got a tremendous advantage over everybody that's interviewing, I think, because number one, he's here, and number two, he gets to do it.
Yeah.
If he does roll out there and we score like back in the Fedora days, you go like just straight vertical seams and we put up like 51 or something, or that's a pretty good interview, right?
Yep.
So, but anyway, yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Karr, what do you think? So I mean, Huff's not there. What's that like? I don't know if you had to go through that, but the guy that has been leading all of the meetings and talks, and he's the head guy in charge. How does this interim staff how does that all work? I mean, do you think it's different as a player, or you just deal with it?
I will tell you this. It's kind of ironic in a way. I dealt with this my first year in coaching, that 98 season when I was at Tulane as a grad assistant. And then Tommy left and went to Clemson. And Rich Rod was supposed to get the job. And, they gave the job to Chris Selfo instead, which some behind the scenes jockeying there. And which, again, very much like the whole Fedora situation when Blake didn't get the job. And we went a different direction and how that set the program back. Same thing. A lot of folks said the same thing with how that all transpired with Rich Rodriguez not getting the job after Tommy. Very, very similar there. Said how that set that program back a little bit. But having been there, and I think the players, it's a player-led group. I think this is an older group. Charlie talked about it. All the older guys. So this is a group that is more than likely player-led. So I think that has a lot to do with it in terms of their preparation and their excitement for this game, and and how they prepare, leading up to the 23rd, to kick off. And I think from a staff standpoint, I think it's a little dicey there because you got guys that are looking forward to the next opportunity, like, the guys on the defensive staff that Huff's bringing with him to Memphis. I use that as an example. And then you got guys that are in a much different situation that are, looking for the next job because they don't have a job, because they've probably been told, hey, I'm gonna do, I'm looking elsewhere for, this position coach, or I'm gonna hire this guy, and thank you for your time, that sort of thing, but I'm gonna look elsewhere. So it's from a staff standpoint, it's a lot different, man. It is. Because you got guys that are looking, they're kind of already 1 foot out the door, headed to Memphis, and then you got other guys that are going to be ultimately unemployed. and are trying to, secure their job for the next head coach here, whether that's Blake or whoever else it is, or they're working the phones trying to get the opportunity, at their next stop. So it's a little different, man. I've seen it firsthand. It's there's some behind the scenes trepidation and some anxiety without question, because all these guys have families, and so they got to look out for themselves and their families too.
No, that's a very, very good point for sure.
I'll say that.
Hey, what about these teams that are opting out of bowls? Like, there's just a slew of them, right off the bat. Like, Notre Dame is one of them, right? And they're like, we're not in the playoff. We're not going to do it. So and I saw somebody tweet out, it might have been USM Voice. It was somebody. Anyway, he tweeted out, he feels like a rule should be in place that if you're a team that opts out of a bowl, you forfeit the revenue that you would receive from the conference payouts. I mean, does that? Can you imagine a scenario, Karr, where you just did? Of course. Now, let me preface that by saying I believe the '96 team, Karr, went 8-3, was ranked like 19th in the country, and didn't get a bowl invite. Is that right?
Yeah, we went 8-3. We were ranked for 4 weeks of the season, I think, 4 or 5 weeks of the season. Tied for the conference championship, 8-3 with losses to Alabama, Florida State, and Houston in overtime.
And didn't get a bowl. So
the landscape, things have changed a little bit, Charlie. Now you can be mediocre and go to a bowl game. You got teams that are not even over 500. I mean, look up in Sarkville, and Mississippi State's going to bowl and they're 5-7. So things are a lot different. But I will say this: there's not a guy that played on that group in '97 that doesn't look back about how, because we went 6-5 in '94, didn't go to a bowl. 6-5 in '95, lost 4 games by a total of 10 points, didn't go to a bowl because there weren't all the bowls now. 8-3 in '96, didn't go to a bowl. And so you get the opportunity to go to a bowl finally in '97, and the experience that we all had, at the Peabody in Memphis for that week leading up to that game against Pitt was memories of a lifetime for all of us. And even guys that, I think that's the part that people don't really understand. Like, they're not in the playoffs. And they don't understand the experience you get from that. It's a unique time. And whether you're going to the New Orleans Bowl, whether you're going to the Liberty Bowl, or whatever, the Duke's Mayo Bowl or the Pop-Tart Bowl, whatever it is now, man, it's still a great time. And it's a blast for these kids. And that's what people don't understand. It is such a great experience for the players and the staff and their families, and really fans too, if you take advantage of it. So I think I hate it. I think sets a bad precedent because you didn't get your way, you didn't get to the playoffs, you're just going to back out. I don't like that. It's just a bad look.
Charlie, I mean, hard to add any perspective there that Karr doesn't have, but I mean, I guess maybe from you're a student, so some of your fellow classmates, if you're used to sitting next to him at class, and then all of a sudden he's like, "Man, I'm not playing in that game. I just don't want to." Like, how would that sit with you?
I honestly, like Karr said earlier, I just feel like it's just another opportunity to showcase your talent. Obviously, Notre Dame's in the headlines right now about them opting out of a bowl game. And I feel like it's disrespectful to college football because you're saying that we are better than you, but also we don't want to play in that. And I feel like it sets a precedent among these bigger teams that if we don't get to the college football playoff, then the bowl games mean absolutely nothing. And I feel like most of these bowl games have a unique history. And whatever bowl it is, like the Fiesta Bowl, like the Rose Bowl, these bigger bowls that we don't want to play in them. And that's why I've really loved the approach that some of these players on Southern Miss are taking, to where we are going to finish the season out, whether it's with Coach Huff or whether it's with an interim coach. We're going to finish what we started, and we're going to do it the right way.
For sure. Hey, and we're boy, this is riveting. I mean, I appreciate you guys coming on so much, and there's so much more we want to get to. I'm going to kind of maybe hit some of the hot spots just so we don't keep these guys forever. Yeah. I could talk to them all night long, but we're talking about coaches, and we've mentioned, Blake Anderson, but who else have you guys heard is in the mix? Myself, I've heard, Mac is one of the guys, and there's some far-fetched things out there with Coach O, with Freeze, and you might be able to think of more names right now than I can, but for me, I don't want a guy who's been involved in a high resource 4 institution because it's just apples to oranges, right? Especially these days. People say Coach O is a great recruiter. What do you recruit anymore? It's all transactional, right?
Yeah.
Your best players, it's like, hey, Coach, I like everything you said. The last guy that came in sat right there, said some very similar stuff, and this is what he said he's going to pay me, right? So once you've been able to just say, all right, I'm going to make a call, and I'll get you that bag. When you can't do that anymore, I think it really affects your ability to recruit. And not to mention, it doesn't matter if he wins. He's set. I want a guy that it matters. Like, he comes here, if he doesn't get it done, it would hurt his life, right? He might not coach anymore. I want a guy who doesn't have a safety net. What do you guys think?
I'll start. First and foremost, you talked about Jerry Mack from Kennesaw State. I think other than Blake Anderson, he's a guy who makes a lot of sense. I know that Kennesaw State football announced today that he got a contract extension.
Correct. Yeah, I was going to say to 31. So that one's done.
Gotcha.
Yeah. But another guy you touched on, Hugh Freeze. That's a really interesting one. He graduated from Southern Miss in 1990. And he got fired at Ole Miss, and then he went back to Liberty, where he had a lot of success, and then went to Auburn and then got fired. But I think Hugh Freeze does make sense. But overall, if you look at all these candidates and where we are at in coaching searches, we're at a point where a lot of candidates are off the board. And I think this is a really good opportunity to where you look at a guy like Blake Anderson and you look, well, he has the resume. He's won at Arkansas State. He's won at Utah State. I think he makes a lot of sense here. So, yeah.
Sure thing. And I wanted to talk about this too. James Madison, right? So personally, I grew up once ESPN came a thing, Charlie, it wasn't always a thing, right? We all remember when it finally happened. We're like, holy crap, sports like all the time. It's nuts. Well, and then, Dan Patrick and Keith Olbermann made it famous with SportsCenter, and then Game Day came around. Well, I don't watch it anymore. I don't think I've done it in 10 years. I'm not a fan of college football anymore because of kind of the direction that it's gone. So I hadn't watched any of these games, right, since they've started having the playoffs and the postseason and all that. I'll be glued to the tube for James Madison. I'll be the biggest Dukes fan on the planet for that game. So, how do y'all feel about that? I mean, it's like, man, there's a shot, right? There's a legitimate shot. It's a long shot, but that's all. I don't think anybody wants to get to any kind of tournament where they're like, we're a lock, But if you put on a uniform and you go out there, then you've got a shot, right? So is it? How do y'all feel about that?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I feel like, obviously, and I think a lot of people in the press and the media are talking about this, but obviously college football is broken. But we also have to make the best out of what we have. I do have to say it has the expansion of the playoff does for where we are. I think it does make it more watchable. It is, I mean, March Madness is March Madness because you got teams that have
Butler,
a shot. Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
I mean, you're
George Washington. No, George Mason.
Yeah. I mean, that's what makes it so fun. It's so freaking successful because it's not, 10 SEC teams in the same thing. And so I'm going to really enjoy it. I think it's a mess. Maybe we should just turn around and go back to the BCS and let computers do it and figure it out. I think having a committee with just bias, if you want to hold people accountable, then let's release the personal rankings of everybody on the committee. This is how we voted. Let's make it public knowledge. Let's see where the bias is. Not just the committee speaking as a whole. That would fix a lot of the problems. Or let's just freaking go back to the computer and let it decide exactly what we had. People complained about that. Then we got a system that's worse. So
It's it needs some type of governing body, but it's so hard right now because everybody has a personal agenda one way or the other, depending on who they work for or their background, their allegiance, and it needs something to give it better structure and leadership to govern a lot of different things that are out of control right now, and
If
fix itself would be certainly one of them. But I do think. Um, it is pretty cool for I'm going to call it the little guys to get in, for JMU to get in, for Tulane to get in. I think that's really awesome. I certainly would expect this to be 16 teams as soon as possible. Um, it's 16 just kind of makes more sense, but then how does that work with the scheduling? Do they move things back? Does week 0 actually become week 1 now?
mhm.
And how does that really play out and with the scheduling and how does that work with the bowls and so forth? I mean, there's a lot of things that need to be fixed, but it's still we're still here talking about it on a Wednesday night. We'll still be locked in on Saturdays in the fall without question.
Hey, so as far as and because the idea has been floated for a while now as a split, right? All the teams that the mouse Disney gives out all this money. And the last couple of years has been $55 million per team in the SEC, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, they finally stacked the deck so much. I mean, Southern Miss was able to compete, not just Southern Miss, but through the years, lots of teams have been able to compete when it really didn't look like you should be able to. I think if you asked Disney, hey, did you think it was going to take 30 years of throwing all this money at the bigger teams, for it to finally take effect? I think they'd be like, nah, we thought it was going to happen instantly, but we hung on and hung on and hung. It's finally gotten to the point where it's kind of hard to hold on anymore, right? So there's been an idea floated out there that there would be a split. What I would hope for is that split would happen. It would be the top 40 teams. Take the top 40, make your own NFL, call it what you want, keep giving all that money, and leave the rest of roughly 80 teams, right, after that,
Yeah.
to do their own thing. And from that, if I really had my druthers, it would be 40 teams and 40 teams and relegation be involved. So I think that would be a great idea. Do you guys support some type of split with the teams that get all of the money right now? Just let them go do their thing. We don't play them anymore. They just play each other. It's just just a different thing. And then we are still involved in what I would say is college football. Charlie, what about you?
Man, I think it's really tough, especially since you're just accepting to where you are versus where they are. But I do think a split's interesting in the sense of relegation. So let's say, for example, you have your 40 SEC teams, or you have your 40 teams that are in the SEC Big Ten, and then you have your other 40 who are the Sun Belt Conference USA. The teams in Conference USA and Sun Belt that do good can bring their way back up and see if they can compete. And if they can't, they can go back down. So I think the split's really interesting, but it's really hard to say if it'll actually solve the problem with college football because in these past 2 years, I mean, think about this year. We have 2 group of 5 teams in the college football playoff this year. The Sun Belt champion was better than the ACC champion, a 5-loss Duke team. So solving the problem, I think there's a lot of factors that have to go into it. I think a split could make a lot of sense, but I don't know how much down the road that would actually be in effect.
Karr?
Probably would be good from a competitive landscape. It really would be. I remember, gosh, this was probably more than 10 years ago. I feel like talking with Bill McGillis about this and him talking about we are headed this way. And it just about how the things are going to, because the revenue is going, the discrepancies between the revenues of all the different schools and conferences is going to become so great. He's like, this is going to happen eventually. And this was at least 10 years ago. I remember Bill talking about that.
Mm-hmm.
I think it probably will end up happening down the road. I don't know when. I don't know what that looks like, but I do think it's going to happen at some point soon, probably within the next 5 years.
Yeah,
Maybe 6.
and I think that it would be. I think it would be a. I think it would be a good idea for sure. But like Karr said, there needs to be. I mean, something's going to happen. I think we can. Nobody's really ever going to agree on the avenue in which we get there. But I think everybody agrees that we need to make the trip, right? So, I think we're in agreement there. And fellas, that's right at an hour, and we have been trying to keep these things right at an hour. I think we solved some of the world's problems, right? When we were planning on maybe talking about Will Hall a little bit, and what went wrong here, and what in the hell is Tulane's thinking, and all that, but this is really the part now. And Pilo, unless you have anything else, I say we do shout outs and we shut this puppy down.
Yeah, sounds good to me.
Okay, this is just a part of the show that we do shout outs. Karr, you probably remember it. Charlie, you can figure it out as we go. I'll start it off. Pilo, you want to give us a little shout out music?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do a little
Christmas, a little Elvis.
Oh, do I have Christmas?
This actually is news to me, Bump, because we did not do this, so this is I'm learning here, man.
Okay.
Oh, okay, yeah. Well, it's just a part of the show where you can be like, hey, I saw this guy. He was cool, and all that. But anyway, I wanted to give a few shout-outs, and it's been a couple weeks now since we've done one, so I'm going to go way back to the turkey toss. I had fun doing the turkey toss challenge with my buddy Keith Carver. We came in second place. If we would have came in first place, we would have got this cool-ass trophy and been recognized on the field at halftime. I was really looking forward to it. We won our first game 21-3. We won our second game 21-3. We were up in our third game 10-3, and I was like, I think we're awesome at cornhole, And then we got beat. So we kind of had, hey, you know what we did? We kind of did the Sutter Miss season right there. In one damn turkey cornhole challenge thing. But so shout out to Keith. Shout out to Tom Colt. I saw him that same day, and he came over. I guess I had a To the Top Talk shirt on or something. And he came over and had nice things to say about the podcast. And I was like, holy crap. Like a real, radio person likes it. So I wanted to say shout out to Tom. And I wanted to give a shout out to DJ Cujo for the entire season. He's all the basketball now, too. I've gotten to know Cujo. We've had him on a couple times, I think. And he's a great dude. He brings the energy. Even at basketball games the other night, like when nobody was there, he's just like, get loud, get loud, get loud. He's got the phone swaying and all that. So shout out to Cujo. And lastly, I want to give a shout out to UPD. I mean, these guys, they have just, they set out to have zero issues at tailgating on campus, and they have 1,000% succeeded in zero issues. There's also zero people, but at the end of the day, it's UPD's job to stamp out crime, right? And to I guess make it as unfun as possible, and that's happened. So shout out to Rusty and the guys, and Merry Christmas to them. And Pilo, I will yield the floor to you.
Oh, that's fun. I didn't hear what he said.
I said I thought that was laced with a little sarcasm there at the end.
Oh, just slightly.
Just a little bit.
Probably get a phone call.
Happened before.
Yes, not the first time. I want to give a shout out to, like we said in the intro, I the last home game I cooked a big batch of jambalaya. It was fantastic. I offered a bowl to Jeremy McLean, and he turned me down.
What?
He said he was a little too nervous to eat, so I respect that. It was a big game and all that. So offered one to Joe Paul. He said I didn't want to eat, but he did want to look at it. He took a look at it. Hit up Coach Ladner and the Bull. So the Bull gave him Matt Russo. Gave him some because it's his family's pot. So they let me borrow the jambalaya pot to do. And so shout out to the Bull, and looking forward to being back in the Pete very soon. And I wanted to give a shout out to, like we said in the open, to Jason. Tomorrow is, I guess today, if you're listening to this, is Jason's birthday. So if you see him, tell him happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Thanks, Pilo.
I'm not gonna put on the little high pitched voice and sing to you, although I should.
I'll tell you what, we'll go with Karr first here, and then we'll finish it out with Charlie. So, Karr, any shout outs you'd like to give just on your way out the door?
Yeah, I tell you what, I'm going to keep it staying with our Golden Eagle athletes. First of all, to Coach Bilderback, to her crew. They're 7-3 on the year. I mean, she's done a phenomenal job. Lady Eagles headed to Starkville this weekend, or is it Sunday? I believe Sunday, playing Mississippi State. So an opportunity there for her crew, I believe. Is that right? Playing Mississippi State.
Yeah, I'm looking it up.
Sunday. But yeah, she's done a really great job and really injected a lot of energy and with her team and her squad. And I tell you what, if you kind of learn a little bit about how she builds that program and the culture, you will be extremely impressed. And she's got some former Lady Eagles on her staff that have done a phenomenal job. And I really think she is going to – I'm so excited about what she's built. I will say that.
Love that.
And then the last piece is for the boys on the gridiron as they prepare for the New Orleans Bowl. And let's end this thing the right way and go pick up that win for those guys in that locker room and for Coach Anderson and all these guys that are on staff that are there and their preparation. And, you know, I'm looking forward to this opportunity. So shout out to those guys as they prepare for the game against Western Kentucky to go win this thing.
Well said. Charlie?
I got 3 big shout outs. First and foremost, Coach Lanehart, going 5-1 in their last 6 games, going into a big game this Saturday against Ole Miss in Biloxi. So seeing a lot of momentum there. Keep it going. Second of all, Hayden Brill. He's an offensive lineman on the football team, brother of mine. I know through all this stuff it can be tough, but for them to be mentally locked in, like Karr said, for a big bowl game means a lot to all the Southern Miss fans. And then my last shout out is to all the Southern Miss fans for safe travels to New Orleans. Hopefully we get a big showing and for their support throughout the football season. So that's about it.
Awesome. Man, guys, yeah, very, very well done. And I'd like to remind everybody that this episode of To The Top Talk was brought to you by the premium light beer Yuengling Flight. Established in 2020 by the oldest brewery in America. Crisp, clean, refreshing taste, 95 calories, only 2.6 grams of carbs. Pick yourself up some Yuengling Flight today, and that is it. We have conquered it. We came in just under an hour 10, looks like, Pilos. That's pretty good. Thanks for listening in today, whatever day you might have listened and whichever platform you chose to listen in on. Remember, you can follow me at Bumper J. Bailey and Patrick at P. Lowry, and follow us on all the social at To The Top Talk. Don't forget about the mailbag, tothetoptalk@gmail.com. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Tell somebody to the top today. And as always, Southern Miss.
To the top.
To the top.
Talk.
Happy birthday.